have it. Good morning. My name is Stefan Michaud, and I'm your lay worship leader for today's service. I warmly welcome you to the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bridgewater. I've been a member here about 20 years, and I serve on the worship committee, which is responsible for planning and presenting today's service, as well as most of the services throughout the year. And what I love about First Parish, in addition to other things that have already been discussed extensively from this forum, is the opportunity to participate as little or as much as we wish. And if people want to get involved and help run the church and take care of different functions, they're more than welcome to do so. There's a soapbox here for anybody who wants to step up and have their say. And if people want to stay out of sight and keep a low profile, then that's allowed too. Before we begin our time of worship, we have, it looks like just one announcement. No, we have three. First, from Debbie, looking for an opportunity to volunteer. We're looking for coffee hour hosts for many of the upcoming weeks. Please sign up on a clipboard in the upper parish hall or see Debbie before she sees you. Jenny is going to address us now, and then Beth.
So again, wearing the hat, I wear a lot of hats, like Stefan said, with different ways to be participating in this church. So stewardship hat, we are climbing in our number of dollars that we've been collecting. This is a very more or less number. I don't have my computer input so far, but about $115,000 we have collected so far. Some pledges just came in this morning. So if you still have not sent in your pledge, we appreciate every amount, any little bit, any big bit, anything you can to help us fund what we do here at this church. It pays mostly the salaries and keeps the lights on, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for your donations and keep them coming.
As we wrap up our considering of joy this month, I just wanted to let everyone know that this coming Saturday, May 3rd, is the Hindu holiday of Holi is being celebrated in Holbrook, and I'll be attending. So if anyone would like to talk to me about coming to, please find me at coffee hour.
First Parish Bridgewater is a welcoming congregation. We proudly fly the rainbow flag to symbolize our welcome to people of all identities, ages, and backgrounds. If you're new to First Parish, we hope you enjoy your experience this morning. We encourage you to fill out the guest book on the table at the rear of the sanctuary, making sure to include your email address if you wish to receive church updates. For newcomers joining online, please see the sign-up link posted in the chat. We invite all who are here in person to join us after the service for a time of fellowship in the upper parish hall. This service is being hosted via Zoom. It's recorded for Bridgewater Cable TV and for YouTube. You can find the link to the YouTube video in the weekly bridging. The recording camera is turned off to protect your privacy during the sharing of joys and concerns. In the event of an emergency or evacuation drill, please leave the building through the main sanctuary doors, or should you need a ramp, through the School Street entrance to my left. You are welcome here. Thank you for joining us. Your presence makes a difference. Before we hear the prelude, a few words. Because April's monthly theme is joy, the worship committee titled this service Ode to Joy. You're all familiar with the tune, and most of you probably know it's the basis for the fourth movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but he did not write the poem, the lyrics, the words. That was written by Friedrich Schiller in 1785 on the eve of the French Revolution, and it represents the triumph of universal brotherhood against war and desperation. Beethoven shared Schiller's vision and wanted to set it to music, incorporating it into his Ninth Symphony in the early 1820s. I hope you like this music because you're going to hear it in 3 different forms today. Please join me now in reciting the words we use to light the chalice while Beth does the igniting duties. We light our chalice to mark
this sacred hour, as we gather in this beautiful historic sanctuary, both in body and spirit. We connect to the many generations that have come here to explore the divine. Let us join our hearts and find the holy in our relationship to each other. It is time to share worship together.
Please join now in the affirmation of our government.
Love is the spirit of the church, and service is faith. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Reverend Rachel Tedesco will now read the opening words.
The opening words are Still So Much Good, Beauty, and Joy by Gretchen Haley. Come in, all who long to know how to love the world, how to keep eyes wide open, hands unclenched, arms wide, Breathe deeply in and out. This is a time to practice because there is still so much good and beauty and joy. But it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on this edge of cynicism, broken-hearted, and trying still to remember laughter and kindness and the chance to be alive when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love that cannot, will not let us go and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together. I invite you all to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our first hymn, number 21, in the gray hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Now is the time of the service for the sharing of joys and sorrows. If you have a joy or sorrow that you'd like to express, please come to the front of the sanctuary and light a candle, and you can either share your matter with us or light a candle in silence as you see fit.
Our pastoral prayer today comes from Joy is Hard by Reverend Joe Cherry. Joy is hard. Joy requires us to feel safe enough, to be safe enough, to be open to vulnerability. To feel joy, you must be brave. Joy walks into a room after the space has been cleared. Cleared of shame, cleared of doubt, cleared of self-recrimination. Joy is hard. Joy is hard, and joy is worth the hard work of preparation. Preparing oneself and setting down all the defenses of the should-haves and the could-haves, all the should not haves and could not haves. Joy is worth the work. You are worth the work. You can start small, the simple pleasure of your favorite tea, the grand freedom of a belly laugh. Invite joy to be your companion. I'd like you to remain seated, but please join me in singing our musical meditation today, which is in your gray hymnal, song number 95. It is There Is More Love Somewhere. We're going to sing 3 verses now. We're going to sing There Is More Love, There Is More Hope, and then There Is More Joy. Later in the service, after we do Stefan, Denise, and myself do our reflections, we're going to sing one more verse after each one as a little interlude, and we're going to sing There Is More Joy. So pay attention because it's going to come back.
Now is the time on the service when the offering will be given and received. For this month, the recipient of our generosity is the Kids to Camp in our Share the Plate program. Your support helps send children from underserved communities to Sheep Pasture Nature Camp, where they can explore and learn in nature. To donate by check, please make it out to First Parish and write Kids to Camp in the memo line. We're going to have an offertory now that's kind of an old chestnut of a rock and roll song. And if you're of a certain age, I'm sure it will be familiar. If you know the words, please feel free to sing along.
Joy to the
the Songs of Joy by Walt Whitman. Song of Joys. Oh, make the most jubilant song, full of music, full of manhood, womanhood, infancy, full of common employments, full of grain and trees. Oh, for the voices of animals. Oh, for the swiftness and balance of fishes. Oh, for the dropping of raindrops in a song. Oh, for the sunshine and motion of waves in a song. Oh, the joy of my spirit. It is uncaged, it darts like lightning. Oh, to sail to sea in a ship, to leave the steady, unendurable land, to leave the tiresome sameness of the streets, the sidewalks, and the houses, to leave you, oh, you solid, motionless land, and entering a ship, to sail and sail and sail. Oh, to have life henceforth a poem of new joys, to dance, clap hands, exalt, shout, skip, leap, roll on, float on, to be a sailor of the world bound for all ports, a ship itself. See, indeed, these sails I spread to the sun and air, a swift and swelling ship full of rich words, full of joys. Now I invite Denise to come and offer our first reflection.
Last Sunday, Reverend Rosemary quoted from a Mary Oliver poem called "Don't Hesitate." In it, Mary advised, if you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate, give in to it. Don't hesitate, give in to it. Well, this made me think back to a difficult time in my life about 18 years ago. My husband Jim and I have been married for 32 years, and unlike many of our friends, we still liked being married to each other. But 32 years was all we were going to get. On November 18th, 2006, Jim never woke up. He had died suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack at age 59. For many months, I was completely inconsolable. I felt like an empty shell. I walked around like a zombie, watching other people live their lives and wishing mine would end. My family, friends, and students tried so hard to comfort me and do things that would make my life tolerable. I knew how hard they were trying, so I put on a mask and I tried to pretend to be happy. In retrospect, I'm not sure I fooled anyone, but I did try. About 10 months later, September or October, I think, my daughter Veronica, her husband John, and my friend Liz convinced me to climb Mount Monadnock with them. About 3/4 of the way up, we stopped for lunch and a rest. Of course, we had chosen the Spellman Trail, the steepest one on the mountain. Remember that one, Eileen? That's the one where your boot fell apart. Liz and I were eating our sandwiches and the apples that we had just bought at Bolton Orchard on the way up while we watched Veronica and John frolicking around on the rocky ledges. And then the strangest feeling came over me. I've never forgotten it. My arms suddenly felt so light, almost like they were wings, about to carry me up into the air. For the first time in almost a year, I didn't feel heavy, burdened, like I was dragging an anchor around with me. It had been so long since I experienced anything like this that I didn't recognize it at first. But it was joy. It was fleeting. It only lasted a few seconds, but it was unmistakable. And at first I felt guilty. I hesitated. I didn't think I should give in to it. But eventually I realized that I was not meant to be wallowing in self-pity for my entire life, and so I gave in to joy. And thus began my obsession with mountain climbing, and was probably what propelled me to want to climb all 48 of the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. I'm not done yet, but I've done quite a few of them and still experience that lightness that comes after summiting. Since then, the moments of joy began to occur more frequently until about 4 years later, I realized I was actually happy and enjoying life again. So probably like most of you, I have many moments of joy in my life, but that one was the most defining one because it plucked me out of despair and made me realize it was possible to live again. And you know what? This was around the same time that I accepted this position, and you have had a lot to do with my recovery, so thank you. And now, little brother Stefan.
Why do we do that? It makes us listen. It makes us concentrate. It makes us focus. It makes us live in the moment. That's the purpose of striking that bowl. I'm going to start. I was given an assignment to address this congregation with a reflection, and I'm going to go back to my academic background and be a pedant and ask, what is joy? Well, excuse me. Joy is generally defined as the emotion evoked by well-being, success, or good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires, as opposed to happiness, which is generally considered to be fleeting, ephemeral. Joy is deep, it's lasting, it has a sense of fulfillment and a connection to something larger than oneself, and also a sense that there's no sadness, no worry, no fear. It tends to be defined by a sense of engagement, self-connection, and living in the moment, what we, back in the hippie days of the late 60s and the early 70s, used to refer to when we said, be here and now. And that's what it's about. It's about turning off your mind, turning off your conscious thought, and just being in the moment. There are 3 types of activities that I've engaged in that basically allow me to do that. The first is the sort of physical intimacy that the Buddhists talk about when they talk about tantric activities, and we're not going to get into that in any depth of detail right at this moment. I'll leave that to your imaginations. The other 2 are riding my motorcycle, which you all know I love to do, because when I do it, I turn my brain off. It's working all the time, but subconsciously, it's in the background, and I'm on autopilot, and I'm sensing and feeling and just being one with the machine and the road and the conditions, and just floating through life without a conscious thought. And there's very little that's more ecstatic than that. And the other thing is, as you all know, I just love jazz music, and I go hear it as much as I possibly can, and I lose myself in it. It lets me turn off my conscious thought. It lets me stop what the meditation type people refer to as the monkey mind. And I know, Kathy, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And when music really gets amazing, it's you transcend the making of thought, of analysis, of conscious decisions, and you just, as the Beatles say, turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. I've been listening to a lot of different type of music lately, and I've coming to appreciate, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, because what I'm learning to appreciate is the juxtaposition of contemporary classical music and jazz. And there's people I know, like Jeff Lederer, is exploring in New York the music of Schoenberg and doing song cycles based on it. And a guy named Michael Bates has a band called Acrobat, and they do Shostakovich, who, by the way, was very political and very anti-war and had to be very careful what he wrote because Stalin was censoring it at the time. And it's kind of funny because yesterday I was talking to Denise about this service, and she said, oh, well, we have to talk about Schiller and the writing of the words to Oath to Joy. And I said, is that Gunther Schiller? And she said, no, Friedrich. Who was Gunther Schiller? I recognize the name, but I don't know who he was. So I looked him up, and he's a very interesting man. He was the director of the New England Conservatory back in the 60s. He was the artistic director at Tanglewood all through the 70s and most of the 80s. And he was a classically trained musician who played flute, like Denise did, and French horn, like I did. And he came up with what he called the third way, which was the merging of classical and jazz music to come up with an entirely new stream. He played with people like Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie, and in 1991 he was one of the very first recipients of the MacArthur Genius Grant. So now I have something brand new to learn about and explore and find even more joy. And I'm going to celebrate that by going back to Brooklyn tomorrow, and I'll be there for about 3 more weeks, and I'll be back by Memorial Day.
Sorry, I'll go like this. Joy does not simply happen to us. We must choose joy and continue to choose it every day. More than choosing joy, I would say that we need to practice joy. We think of the word practice as something you do until you get good at something, and then you can just stop and never practice again. Anyone who has ever played a sport or an instrument or sang or knit or painted knows that this isn't true. You practice to learn, then to hone your skills, then to commit every bit of your craft to memory, to the memory of your muscles until the basic movements are something you don't even need to think about anymore. Then you keep practicing, over and over and over again. Then you practice some more. Joy is much the same way. When I was in 5th grade, I had the much anticipated experience of getting to choose an instrument for the school band. I picked the flute, intrigued by the fact that you hold it horizontally rather than vertically. Very cool. My fellow 5th graders and I practiced in band class once a week and practiced at home as much as our parents would tolerate, and finally got the opportunity to play at our winter concert. We were terrible. Screechy reed instruments, flatulent sounding brass, off-key flutes. But there was so much joy in that moment. Joy that we had practiced, worked hard to cultivate, and would continue to learn from. I think for some of us, the joy was realizing that we wanted to never do this ever again. I don't think any of us grew up to be professional musicians, and most of us went on to find our joy elsewhere, but practicing over and over again and still being terrible at something reminds us that to be good at something, the practice never stops. When you're picking up a new hobby, it helps to feel like you look the part, like you have everything you need to succeed in your new endeavor. Wearing the right gear, purchasing new supplies like embroidery hoops, pickleball rackets, and more yarn than you'll ever use in any conceivable lifetime, speaking from personal experience. When you're embarking on your journey to practice joy, it helps to set yourself up for success in the same way. You don't need to have the perfect clothes or the perfect hair or be the idealized version of yourself. You just need to put yourself in a position to feel joyful. For me, If I wake up in the morning, put some real clothes on, take some time to enjoy my coffee in my favorite mug, enjoy my favorite things, I'm reminding myself that if I appear like a joyful person, I can be a joyful person. While it's certainly possible to learn a new skill on your own, it certainly doesn't hurt to have a teacher, coach, or mentor to show you the ropes. I've had so many of these throughout my life, some of whom are in this room. However, the truest example of joy in my life was shown to me by my beloved Uncle Tom. He was my mom's younger brother. He died a few years ago, and he had Down syndrome. I think it's both depersonalizing and frankly not true to assume that everyone with a disability is a shining beacon of constant joy. Tom could be stubborn, he could be spiteful, and he could be a jerk, just like everybody else. But the joy in his laughter overshone all of that. He attended a day-hab program for other adults with special needs, and one day a week they went bowling. He was a genuinely stellar bowler. In the afternoon on a bowling day, you could hear him cackling as he walked up the driveway, exclaiming about his score, how many strikes or spares he got, and who he beat. It didn't even matter if anyone was there to listen. He was just exclaiming his joy to the universe, and the universe shared that joy with him. Every week, we share our joys and sorrow as a community. We share in the burden of our collective sorrows and delight in the doubling of our shared joy. But many weeks, it seems so much easier to light a candle and invite in the sorrow. We see so much grief in our own lives, in our community, and in the world. The grief has always and will always be there. But that doesn't mean our joys are any less real or any less potent when they share a bed with sorrow. It just means that we need to be intentional with choosing joy and inviting joy in and practicing joy. Make toast with the fancy jam you got in a Christmas basket and eat it off the good china. Take a long shower and use the nice lotion afterwards. You know, the one you're saving for a special occasion. We're alive, and that's as special an occasion as it gets. Every day is all that there is.
I just had a moment where I realized if I adjusted the microphone while I was singing, you would hear me. That wasn't joyful for me. This past February, I left a parenting cocoon that I had lived in for 8 surprise months. I was eager to get out and do all the things that I had missed. In fact, it took me a full month of sleeping and sitting still to be ready to get out. But when February came, it was time. And one of my first outings was to a conference sponsored by the trans community of New England. Peter and I were excited to get dressed up in fancy gala clothes and eat a meal with no toddler throwing food at us. I was especially interested in the workshops hosted for teachers that were working to make our schools safer for our students during these hard times. I actually stumbled into a workshop about Bible interpretation. That was a huge joy for my sacred text nerd self. But the workshop that Peter and I wanted to attend the most was presented by queer students from New College in Florida. The school, once called the GLBTQ Oasis, had come under fire from Governor DeSantis. Not only did he remove members of the school's board and replace them with his supporters who pledged to turn the state school into something more like a Midwestern conservative Christian college, he used the school as the location to sign some of his painful anti-queer legislation. These young people wowed us with their strength, their resilience, and their wise ability to articulate the wide-ranging problems created by this strategic attack on their school and how it affected the wider America. As I was rendered speechless by their intellect and their thoughtfulness, they told us they had one last piece of advice to give us in resisting oppression and navigating the current struggle. And here it is. Leave room for queer joy. Leave room for queer joy. Now, I am not entirely sure that I know what queer joy is, but I do know this. I know that it is what was missing in my 90s. My activist self was way too serious. So, the students from New College and the students and the new grads from New College understood that we might have a problem comprehending what queer joy was, so they offered us an instructional video. I was on the edge of my seat, waiting to unlock this secret tool to fight oppression. And this video, I wish I had saved it. It was amazing. I wanted to bottle the feeling I had when I watched this video. It was scene after scene of young people doing things that brought them joy. And it might not be a surprise that the students at New College reject gender norms, but this video showed a bunch of kids that rejected every norm about fashion I have ever encountered. And they rejected those norms joyfully. While dancing, while singing, while playing board games and reading books, there was quiet joy and loud joy. Kids being unapologetically themselves. Dancing like no one was watching, except that they were being videotaped for a conference. Yeah. What I took from this video is that we have to find our joy, and we can never let society tell us that our joy is something to be embarrassed about. Never something to hide. If our joy is outside the norms, we should embrace it even harder. A few years ago, I got an email from Representative Ayanna Pressley. Somehow I ended up on her fundraising list. And this particular email had a picture of a kitten with the phrase, "Joy is a necessary act of resistance." This stuck with me. Now, I was familiar with the phrase, often attributed to poet Toy Derricott, but Representative Pressley had added the word necessary. It changed the meaning for me. You can't fight injustice without joy. Joy isn't a frivolous thing that comes after victory. And pairing that phrase with a kitten, that was really what did it for me. Because if you asked me to decide whether a puppy or a kitten brought me more joy, that binary would just stop the gears of my brain from turning. So in revisiting this phrase, I found many references to Representative Pressley speaking about joy as a necessary act of resistance. The phrase is so popular, you can buy it on a t-shirt at Amazon. And in recent interviews, Representative Pressley said that the current presidential administration is coming for our rights. We can't let them take our joy. So if my 90s were way too serious, I have also suffered from the trap in 2025 of allowing my joy to be taken from me. So today I am committing to finding my joy and holding it and not being embarrassed. I will cross the street to pet a dog. I will talk to strangers at the grocery store. I will pause for a minute to smell my coffee before taking a sip. I will wander into yards to smell flowers. This might be my favorite. I will greet teenagers enthusiastically at 7 a.m., even though they are still sleepwalking. And if you know any kittens I can play with, please come find me at coffee hour. Joy is not frivolous or a privilege I should feel guilty about. Joy is the fuel that helps me to love a broken world. Find your joy and make it fuel for the good you do.
Please rise in body or spirit to sing our closing hymn, which is number 29 in your gray hymnal. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry, I thought I said the wrong thing. So it's number 29, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. And Denise is going to play the first verse, and then there's going to be an interlude, and then the second verse. So pay attention, but it should be pretty obvious when we come in for the second verse.
Our benediction today comes from the Reverend Scott Taylor. This joyful game. Kick the ball, dance in the rain, get lost on purpose, fly the kite, smell the flowers, pull out the paints. Let life take you by the hand, friends. Lean backward and let the wind mess up your hair. Open to the joy that's been waiting for you. Behold its delight. But don't you know that you have already won the prize? Now we'll go out and share it.
Please join me now in reciting the words with which we extinguish the chalice. We Our time for worship has ended, and now is the time for fellowship. Please congregate in the upper parish hall for coffee, food, and conversation.
When you see something that's too